Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, War, Peace, and the Presidency. I'm Amy Goodman. Today is Election Day. Over 78 million people across the United States have already voted in early voting, with record participation in battleground states like North Carolina and Georgia. Control of Congress is at stake, with 34 Senate seats and the entire House of Representatives up for election. Of those, the Cook Political Report says 22 House races and 4 Senate races as toss-ups. Republicans need to pick up 2 seats to gain a majority in the Senate, while Democrats are just 4 seats short of taking back the House. On Monday, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump both campaigned in the swing state of Pennsylvania. Harris wrapped up her campaign with a final rally in Philadelphia.
I am ready to offer that leadership as the next President of the United States of America. However, the race ain't over yet, and we must finish strong, and this could be one of the closest races in history. Every single vote matters.
Harris was joined by Oprah Winfrey at her closing rally, which also featured performances by Ricky Martin, Lady Gaga, and will.i.am. Donald Trump delivered his closing speech in Grand Rapids, Michigan, as he had in the last 2 election seasons. Earlier in the day, he spoke from Reading, Pennsylvania.
November 5th, 2024 will be Liberation Day in America. And on day 1, I will launch the largest deportation program of criminals in American history. We're going to get them out. We have to. I will invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. You know, 1798. That's when they ran the country a little tougher than we run it today.
Trump's final hate-filled anti-immigrant rallies came as Politico reported the Trump campaign recently fired a white nationalist field director in western Pennsylvania. 24-year-old Luke Meyer, known online as Alberta Barbarossa, was a co-host of the podcast Alexandria with far-right media personality Richard Spencer. Speaking as his virtual alter ego, Meyer once said, quote, "Why can't we make New York, for example, white again? Why can't we clear out and reclaim Miami?" he asked. Also at stake in today's election, abortion, which is on the ballot in a record 10 states. Reproductive rights supporters are watching Florida especially closely, where a ballot measure, Amendment 4, could restore abortion access after Republicans imposed a 6-week ban. A Pennsylvania judge Monday declined to halt Elon Musk's $1 million daily giveaway to swing state voters who sign on to his super PAC pledge. Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krasner had sought to shut down the scheme, calling it an illegal lottery. Palestinian medical sources say at least 70 people were killed by Israeli attacks on the Gaza Strip over the last 24 hours. At least 20 people were killed in the besieged northern town of Beit Lahia when an Israeli airstrike ripped through 2 homes. Meanwhile, Israeli soldiers have withdrawn from the Kamal Adwan hospital after raiding it for a 2nd day in a row. The hospital had already been operating with a skeleton crew after Israeli forces last week detained dozens of medical workers there. Israel's most recent attacks damaged the hospital's upper floors where the children's ward was located, seriously wounding a child who was recovering from surgery. On Monday, the head of the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, said the amount of aid entering Gaza reached a new low in October, with a daily average of just 30 trucks entering into Gaza. That's just 6% of the cargo allowed to cross before Israel began its assault on Gaza nearly 13 months ago. Palestinians say the situation will be even worse after Israel this week formally ended a decades-old cooperation agreement that allowed UNRWA to operate.
This is considered a death sentence for Palestinians inside the Gaza Strip. How many thousand students will be deprived of schooling? How many thousand patients will be deprived of treatment? How many thousand employees will lose their jobs? How many thousand people will be deprived of aid? This is a violation of international norms and the laws that exist in the world.
This comes as the Biden administration continues to provide weapons and ammunition to Israel, ignoring foreign assistance laws that bar such aid to countries that commit gross human rights violations. On Monday, Associated Press reporter Matt Lee asked State Department spokesperson Matt Miller to grade Israel's response to that 30-day deadline imposed by the U.S. to end its starvation campaign in northern Gaza.
They certainly do not have a passing grade. They have failed. I said they have failed to implement all of the things that we recommend in that letter. Now, that said, we are not at the end of the 30-day period,
Okay,
and we
so
are
it's a
in
fail, but you're not ready to give them
It's
a
not the end.
pass.
It's not the end of the semester. You don't hand out grades in the middle.
Well,
in the middle.
I suspect that the levity is a little bit inappropriate.
No,
I expect that the levity is a little bit inappropriate, said AP reporter Matt Lee, as the State Department spokesperson Matt Miller chuckled at his own joke. Israeli forces have killed at least 4 Palestinians during airstrikes on the occupied West Bank. 2 Palestinians were killed by an Israeli drone attack near the city of Kabatia, and 2 others in an aerial attack on Tamun outside the city of Nablus. The killings come after armed Israeli settlers launched a wave of attacks on West Bank Palestinians, burning their homes and property and destroying olive trees. On Sunday evening, settlers torched more than 20 vehicles in the city of Al-Bideh, while in the town of Deir Dibwan near Ramallah, settlers scrawled hateful graffiti on walls and set fire to a parking lot. Elsewhere, settlers burned dozens of olive trees in a grove on Palestinian land in the town of Berqa, northwest of Nablus. When Palestinians tried to put out the flames, they say they were beaten by settlers who also threw rocks at them. Israeli strikes in Lebanon Monday killed at least 15 people and wounded 90 others. The attacks bring the overall death toll from Israeli attacks on Lebanon to more than 3,000. Hezbollah responded by firing rockets toward Israel in what said were attacks on soldiers' barracks and other military targets. Lebanon's national news agency reports Israeli attacks have devastated 37 towns across southern Lebanon, destroying more than 40,000 housing units. Syria's government has condemned Israel for carrying out airstrikes in a civilian area south of the capital, Damascus. On Monday, Syrian media reported 2 people were killed and 5 others wounded when Israeli warplanes launched an air attack from the direction of the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. Israel's Air Force later claimed it had hit Hezbollah targets in Syria.
As is November the 5th, 2024. It's elections in the most powerful country in the world. It's been the silent day. I can sense around the world how the expectation of what's going to happen after tomorrow, with all the open fronts that are running all around in slow motion today, but the attacks hasn't stopped from Israel in Gaza. But this is the future of us, the country, and the world. And this is very grim, if you ask me. Any of the 2 candidates that are running for the presidency of America, or the United States of Israel, as I call it, is for Americans, but is for foreign interest, whomever has the money to support them. As you know, almost $1 billion were raised just for the campaign, push up for the campaign for Kamala Harris. The same for Mr. Donald Trump, maybe even more. Whomever interests are that play right here are the same owners of both parties in the United States. We have seen how they bow to the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu 58 times in the last presentation in the American Congress, which is humiliating for the people of the world. And to see how a person that is committing genocide has the support of the most powerful country in the world and its allies in order to keep on killing and destroying citizens, women and children, from the hundreds of thousands every day, 100 here, 100 there, 200, and nothing happened to them, is total impunity, despite that the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court ordered the plausible capture of Benjamin Netanyahu and his cabinet. His cemented cabinet that believes that we have to go along with genocide because they say so. And whomever opposes them, well, kill them, destroy them. Lebanon, kill them, destroy them, even though they haven't advanced more than a kilometer. Not even 2 kilometers have they advanced or taken from Lebanon, south of Lebanon. And all this in the head of the American government and the hypocrisy of the Pentagon and the State Department and all the powers that be that control this planet up until now, with the vision of we take what is yours, it's mine, and whatever is in the world is mine, or else we will destroy you and we'll take you apart, we'll take your resources, we'll take all kinds of cruelty and corruption in your country. In the meantime, we'll say that we're doing it for the name of democracy and we're doing it for democracy, and that we were pushed and that we were forced to do it, and that America always is trying to look for peace, that is not a colonialist country. He says that he's ready to protect the American lives that die in the conflict with Iran or protecting Israel. And now that we know that Iraq has attacked with also Syria, Israel, in the last 48 hours, 72 hours, in Hezbollah has made the claim of 26 attacks on Israel in the last 48 hours. And today is election day in America, and the war doesn't stop. The war between Russia and Ukraine. Neither the occupation in Gaza or Lebanon. So the Third World War, which we are already in, will explode now in a hot war. No more these games of mercenaries, etc. It's going to be full war. And if you look to the other front, the special operation of Russia in Ukraine speaks volumes about this. And the first thing appears here is that America is saying that Russia is running away from the front and that Russia is losing hundreds of thousands of soldiers, when the information that I gather proves otherwise. It is Russia who's taking over land, violently, unnecessarily, but normally peacefully, because they are advancing kilometers a day. And now, in different fronts, even in Kursk, where American soldiers have died. So the right to protect in Luhansk and Donetsk was started all this because in 2014 it was nothing but an excuse, the Minsk Accord that was already accepted by ex-minister of Germany, Mrs. Angela Merkel, that Minsk was nothing but a distraction to the Russians in order for Ukraine to arm to the teeth and receive all the training possible from soldiers and technicians, etc., in order to fight Russia in the name of the United States, using Ukraine. So Donetsk and Luhansk was asking for Russia for protection, and the right to protect applies in this case of the special operation. I have talked and explained that 2 years ago to you with the documents China and Russia sent to the Americans at the United Nations for this purpose. The Americans' understanding of the war in Ukraine is that they don't want the tax dollars, the Americans don't want the tax dollars to go to war, not even for the Israeli ones, especially the Israeli one. But the war in Ukraine has demonstrated that mercenaries that are rangers from the United States of America, we're talking about special forces, special soldiers, not any soldier gets to be a ranger. Not any soldier gets to be, even combat soldiers don't have rangers or special forces specializations, military specializations. So we're talking about people that are technicians that train Ukrainians in HIMARS and missiles that are long, medium, long-range distance, that ballistic missiles that can carry 500, 2,000 pounds of TNT or other more advanced explosives, synthetic explosives, etc., even nuclear heads. So by doing the assistance, by giving that assistance, Americans and Europeans expose themselves, and in many cases they're being killed and destroyed. But not only that, there's also units that are operating there, which are made up of mostly Nazi Ukrainians, but there's people from other parts. There's Colombian, Guatemala, but they're being treated like crap, especially Latinos, by the Ukrainian forces, and sending them on suicidal missions and sending them like crap to die and treating them bad. And there's information about how the case of Colombian mercenaries been treated so bad that they denied them water, they tied them up behind their back, they covered their heads, and other Colombian mercenaries, weapon up, and still with the Ukrainian flag in their shoulders, went and rescued them for this mistreatment from the Ukrainian idiots that believe that they can do that with mercenaries because they're Latinos. Some of the best soldiers in the world that I can tell you might be better than these idiots that are, they say, controlling them. Because if something characterizes the one of the problems in Ukraine is that they have no command. The soldiers are left on their own, and when they try to locate command, there's no command. They're not going to go to that theater of operations. And if they send soldiers, they send soldiers that now are American, like I said, Rangers, etc., that are being killed in this zone, in the American war and European war against Russia. So that is very stupid. Many things to say about this theater. They're receiving a little bit of their own medicine because Kraken and as Azov battalion, 200 men were targeted yesterday in Ukraine in the zone of Kursk. And the advancements of the Russian troops are unstoppable right now. It doesn't matter what Antony Blinken said to you. I have seen programs and I have seen video that maybe YouTube censor, and that is disgusting. But Antony Blinken said that the Russians are abandoning their posts when it's the opposite. Thousands and thousands of Ukrainian soldiers are surrendering to the Russians. They don't want to die in war. America is lying, and it's always lies. And Antony Blinken and those irresponsible people, the spokesperson in the world, from the Western world, are stupid. They think that we, the people, are stupid, and they treat us as such. And that's why this election is so important. It is the most important since the First or the Second World War, I would say, now that we're going to the third. So even though they have conquered literally the world, and I'm talking the Israeli lobbyists, for centuries, since 1492, especially the position of colonization hasn't changed a bit. And I'm not talking only about the Jews, I'm talking about its allies, and that is whomever is for money in rich economists like BRICS are opposing. And the new associates, because there's memberships for BRICS, but there are countries that cannot be associate full membership, but they're holding the line. And as for now, they're being just not full membership, granted not full membership, but associated countries to BRICS. So that implies also the weaponization of technologies, of course, which are so important. That's why the technology won the wars, the First and the Second World War. Is all about technology, but strategy. So Putin has no problem to call America as it is. For example, if you go, for example, to a meeting, the last meeting of the BRICS, there were Australian journalists, there were BBC, there were CBC, everybody was welcome to, unless it was not accredited by the government of Moscow, it wouldn't have been there. But all journalism and all journalists from all countries were welcome there at the Kazan convention also, and the St. Petersburg economical meeting this year too, etc. They were all welcome. But if any Russian TV channel goes to America or Europe, is ostracized, is literally taken apart, and no, you're not welcome here, get out. And Russia doesn't do that. But does that tell us that America and European Union has the conviction that we don't need to know the truth whatsoever about anything in what they have planned for us, a country in the world, in the Western world? That is the European Union, the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and of course, the United States of Israel. That's very dangerous for us, for the country, for the world. We have to reflect on this. the promotion of Mr. Ursula von der Leyen when she says that we need to control the communications and we need to control the misinformation and disinformation that is occurring in the Western world, because she's saying that everybody needs to be persecuted, located, geolocated, using Pegasus, using Facebook, YouTube, all the mainstream media, the alternative media. Everybody said something against us, the country, and the jailed if it's necessary, with the policy of Bill C-11, the new implementation of Bill C-18, and now with the last Bill 63, which can put anybody that says anything about Israel and its genocide against the Palestinians can be jailed for years. And if not for the cause that he was to protect, it is the freedom of speech, because of what he owns to the lawyers. So, and this is in Canada alone. Mrs. von der Leyen, as I have explained in many other programs, and you can hear in the Spanish version also, is that we're going to keep on going with the surveillance systems, and we have Stuxnet, Pegasus, SUS, viruses that can infect your computers and your telephones against our citizens that are not willing to obey us. This is the decision of the bureaucrats, like Ursula von der Leyen, that's not been elected publicly by anyone in Europe, but a bureaucratic body that is supposed to take care of the concerns and suggest concerns to the solutions to the European Union. And even though has not been elected for anybody by anybody, they are the guys that are making political decisions and policy on a sold-out parliament, congresses, chambers of European councils, and the European countries, UK, etc., betraying their own people, forgetting the interest of the people, but the interest instead of the elite. And their methods, since 1492, like they did in the third world countries, and now they're doing it their own. That is treason to the Constitution. And when you put these people in charge, that means that the Constitution has no value for them. The Constitution has no significance to them. The citizen itself doesn't have any significance for some. But the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and Freedoms that are for protection for the citizens, and the Constitution of a nation means comes from nativity. We don't have any other rights but to obey what our government say, or else we can go to jail. And we are doomed to destruction with these kind of policies that Canada is applying. For example, when the Emergencies Act has been proven to be by a judge inadequate and not only unnecessary to be applied, but they don't care. They just want to justify with the Supreme Courts in the world that we can be punished for not obeying and our rights and freedoms are be taken. That's what to be governed by the elites and bureaucrats like Ursula von der Leyen or Chrystia Freeland means for Canada. This is not directed by the people for the people. On the contrary, this is the beginning of the 7 years of disaster that the apocalypse speaks all about. I don't want to be pessimistic here, but we're in the hands of idiots, immature, childish people with way too much power. And we have not only corrupt people that knows that the politicians are so easily corrupt that they are controlling our destination, our final destination. Our fate is in the hands of these idiots, but not without us. Nothing about us without us. And this is the time for us, the country and the world, to change things. The second part that I wanted to tell you about is how are we educated politically, and how educated are the United States of America when it comes to politics. You can see the balloons, you can see the smiles, you can see Kamala Harris is a model. She is a beautiful woman, she dances, she slaps the claps, and it's all good. Come together, woo, and here's Beyonce, all right, and protecting the genocide, while protecting the genocide in Gaza, she's going to keep on doing it, she's going to go against Russia. The same with Donald Trump. He's the propeller of support for Israel, he's going to go, already give you Jerusalem, I'm going to give you the Golden Heights, already give you this and that, or he gave them the Golan Heights, and whatever Israel wants, and now Lebanon. Vote for Trump, vote for Harris. We all going for war. We're going to protect this. That is a show of stupidity that anybody from other galaxy or another planet should say. But this, I think he will be crying and laughing. They would say, "What is going on with that planet? What is this race and species talking about? Behaving like?" Does these people deserve to live and expand through the universe? I don't think so. This idiocy of politicians, and this is the most powerful country in the world. when they fire, the Israeli lobby fires, displays professors of universities, destroys the lives of like Norman Finkelstein, professors of law, replacing Jesus for Barabbas, sending all the Christian world to hell and replacing the word of the Lord for the word of Barabbas. Don't you remember John 8? You Catholics, you Christian evangelicals, you that pride yourself so much to be knowledgeable in the word of the Lord, and you don't see that you're betraying him right now? And you call this democracy? Well, we see Benjamin Netanyahu, that the only thing he's missing is the mustache of Adolf Hitler himself, and how he lies at the United Nations just a few days ago in the Israeli media. All these reporters of the Israeli lobby, the military, the soldiers, how these people get naked in Palestinian beaches and say, now this is ours, and how they already plan, as I explained to you with luxury of detail, how the son-in-law, Mr. Trump, has already planned, how many beach houses he's going to have with his friends and all the Jewish occupiers of Palestine. If this is not madness, if I were God, I will be so pissed off of this mediocre insanity, madness of demonic characteristics that this world is heading to, with our eyes open, wide open. And this is just the beginning of the end, guys. I'm sorry to tell you, I wanted to be more optimistic, but this genocide is going to come all over the world, and whomever don't obeys to this 1984 crap and the golden calf built under the skirt of Mount Sinai is going to prevail. That is the Talmudic vision of Israel. It's going to prevail if we don't react today to these matters. So the interest of the strong, in this case, the strong, and it's our time to prove it, is the strong is the people. The strong is us. The strong is the country. Because whomever is in charge of this, whether it's out in space, if it does it for pleasure, for fun, or for whatever the reasons are, we'll need to call the gods and like in the mythology, hey, you lie to us, gods. You use us as pawns. You're just having fun on us. We want to destitute you of your power. But I don't believe that Christian God is that. But the God that is presented by the Christian pastors and the Christian evangelicals, and of course the Christian Catholicism, is nothing but to support Israel. And I'm sorry, but I'm not that kind of Catholic, and I was an educated Catholic. So let's destitute the European Commission. It's here for nothing. The United Nations is at risk. And we need to support whomever defends what is right, what is strong, what is virtuous, what is honorable. And destroy anything that opposes what we, the people, without the people, will never accept. And that is this supposed democracy or new rules-based order. Let's say rules-based order world that the United States of Israel and Europe and the UK are proposing for our own, which we don't accept. Vote for me, FDRC Molano, elections 2025 at gmail.com. Leave your information there, guys. Please leave exact information, home address, phone number, and name. And it will be protected, of course. And vote for me for Prime Minister of Canada and next federal elections. And I will promise you, I do now, that my program will be to put America and Europeans and allies with Canada first. But only, and if only, there are some requisites completed. And that is disassociation of war, disassociation of genocide, and disassociation in supporting governments that are committing genocide against others. It's not me saying it. Is the international law, the United Nations Charter, and it's also in American law not to support countries that are committing genocide or abuses of or criminal war crimes against others or within their own borders, which is what United Nations Charter means, which is the Geneva Pact talks about, which is that all these treaties and human rights conventions are all about. Especially the Convention in Prevention and Punishment of Genocide of 1948 that I have read for you. Listen, guys, vote for me if you want a better Canada, a Canada that can lead the world from the ground up if bombs start falling. Find your place, find where is your bunker. It's time for you to know, because it doesn't matter who wins the elections today in the United States, the third world war already begun. For us, for the country, for the world, React Today, and hope to see you next time in the next edition of React Today as part of the World's Real Project. Au revoir, bye-bye, hasta pronto.
Why, when you were in the United States last week, did you not publicly condemn the United States in front of the world for giving the weapons to Israel to commit these genocidal atrocities? Why don't you now tell them that the US military are not welcome in Shannon Airport while they are arming a genocide to commit these atrocities? Taoiseach, the images of people burning alive at Alaska Hospital and in a tent camp beside that hospital are possibly the most horrific, stomach-churning, terrifying images of this horrific year of genocide by Israel against the people of Gaza. I suspect those images will probably be the lasting image in people's minds of the utter horror that Israel is inflicting on the people of Gaza, burning people alive in hospitals, in ICU beds, in tents, innocent people, like Shaban al-Dalou, like a falafel seller, a janitor, burning them alive. This same regime on Sunday killed 22 people in a school in Al-Nasurat, 22 and 80 injured in a school, repeatedly bombing a school. Over the weekend, there's evidence that Israel has been using white phosphorus, chemical weapons, in an area where innocent Lebanese people live and where the UN peacekeepers are present. They have threatened Irish troops. They have attacked UN bases. There's simply no atrocity Israel isn't willing to commit, and we're seeing this in front of our eyes. Now, the thing is, Taoiseach, that most likely the white phosphorus, the bombs that burn people alive in Gaza, the weapons that are being deployed to murder people in Gaza and now in Lebanon came from the United States. And some of them, and very possibly some of those that were used in these horrific atrocities and to commit this genocide, went through Irish airspace. And yet your government has done nothing to stop that. The Ditch reports that over the weekend, since the Israeli army pointed their tanks at our troops, 2 more flights have gone through Irish airspace carrying munitions to Israel to carry out their genocidal atrocities against the people of Gaza, and still you let it happen and do nothing about it. There were thousands of people, I was one of them, in Shannon Airport at the weekend, saying, why don't you stop this? And that you are complicit as long as you allow it to happen, and that you allow the US military to use Shannon, who are up to their necks in arming and supporting and giving succour to the crimes that Israel is committing. Why, when you were in the United States last week, did you not publicly condemn the United States in front of the world for giving the weapons to Israel to commit these genocidal atrocities? Why don't you now tell them that the US military are not welcome in Shannon Airport while they are arming a genocide to commit these atrocities? What are you going to do to stop munitions going to commit these atrocities and these massacres and these crimes go through Irish airspace? What are you going to do to stop the Irish Bank facilitating the sale of Israeli war bonds to finance the genocidal massacre that has been committed? You're speaking out of both sides of your mouth unless you do something on those issues, Taoiseach.
Taoiseach, please. If we could measure empathy and compassion in decibels, I wouldn't win, and you'd win. But the reality is you don't have a monopoly in terms of your concern for the people of Palestine. You certainly don't have a monopoly in terms of your concern for our peacekeeping troops. Something I'm updated on several times a day. We're in constant contact with our peacekeepers, and keeping them safe is the #1 priority of this government, the #1 priority of the United Nations, and we work on it on around the clock. on a round-the-clock basis. Can I just make one point more broadly in relation, not in relation to anything Deputy Boyd Barrett said specifically, but in relation to the broader issue of being able to differentiate between the people of Israel and the policies pursued by the government of Netanyahu and many people who live in this country, people of the Jewish faith as well. I just think at a time of heightened concern, including from government condemnation of the actions of the Israeli government, I just do want to differentiate very clearly and let those people know that I can differentiate very clearly between the people of Israel and between the actions of the Netanyahu and the Netanyahu government. This is a government that's acting, Deputy Boyd Barrett. By any fair measure, it's acting. And I find it so peculiar that it's only when I engage with you that you suggest inaction. When I sit down with the Palestinian president, he thanks me for the actions we're taking on behalf of the Irish people. When I sit down with the Palestinian Prime Minister, he thanks me for the actions he's taking. When I spoke with the Prime Minister, but I'm answering the charge. I'm answering the charge that you put on a constant basis. The charge that you put: shout, 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 and roar. While you're shouting and roaring, while you're shouting and roaring, we're acting. We're acting, and the President of Palestine knows it. The Ambassador, now the cacophony.
Will you let the Taoiseach respond?
Thank you.
He won't respond. He's answering everything but the question.
No, I'll answer the questions exactly, but I'll answer them as I see fit.
There was nobody over here shouting while you were speaking. So please, little courtesy.
I'm not going to, Count Corla, accept the charge that this government is not taking action in relation to calling out breaches of international law, standing up for human rights, supporting the people of Palestine, recognising the state of Palestine, and supporting our peacekeepers. And quite frankly, I find it stomach-churning to hear you suggest that we don't do that, because that's absolutely what we do, and we're taking more actions. And I made very clear in the constructive contribution from Deputy Batchik, the steps that we now intend to take in working with the opposition to see if we can do more in relation to trade on the occupied territories. In relation to the issue regarding munitions, also, by the way, you also seem to have this view as to what I did and didn't say in the United States. I mean, I didn't look left and right, but I didn't see you beside me. I spoke to the President of the United States for about 58 minutes. I know exactly what I spoke to the President of the United States about. The President of the United States knows exactly what Ireland views in relation to this. All levers at all disposal should be used, and all countries should not provide weapons to Israel. Okay?
Deputy, please.
Weapons to Israel. You voted this House to try and stop me going to even have a conversation.
Did you ask him to stop sending weapons?
They voted.
Did you ask him to stop sending weapons? Did you ask him to stop sending weapons? Answer the question, which you've been dodging from the media.
Deputy,
I'd love to answer it. I'd love to answer it.
Sure. Sorry,
apologies.
There's no role in asking any questions. The leader of your group is asking the question. And do your leader, as well as everybody else, the courtesy of listening to the reply.
The answer is very clear. The people over there voted in this House last week to suggest I shouldn't go to the United States of America. They now want to critique what I said in the United States of America. If it was up to you, I wouldn't have been able to have a conversation. I made the point to President Biden that I make in public and private, all countries should use all levers to bring about a ceasefire, and that includes the issue of weapons. I made that very clear. In relation to munitions, we're very clear as to what can and can't happen over Irish airspace, and it's expressly prohibited for civilian aircraft to carry munitions of war in Irish sovereign territory without being granted exemptions to do so by the Minister for Transport, and no such exemptions have been granted.
Thank you. Deputy Boyd Barrett.
Last November, we brought a motion in here calling on you to instigate action for genocide against Israel. You voted against it. In October of last year, we brought a motion in here asking you to put in sanctions on Israel as they commenced that genocide. You voted against it. Before any of this started, we asked you to publicly support the demands of Amnesty International in calling for targeted sanctions against Israel for illegal occupation and apartheid. You refused to do it. You've been dragged kicking and screaming all the way. You've blocked the Occupied Territories Bill since 2018. And now, because there are tens of thousands of people on the streets and we are seeing genocide unfold in front of our eyes, you're thinking about looking again at the Occupied Territories Bill. But you continue to allow the US military to go through Shannon when that government is arming the Israeli state to commit genocide. Under the Genocide Convention, as I pointed out to you and your government last November, we are obliged as signatories to do everything in our power to deter even the possibility of a genocide. You haven't done anything to try and deter the possibility. That was why the Genocide Convention was developed after the Holocaust. And we have done nothing to discharge our obligations to actually deter the prevention of a genocide when weapons going through Irish airspace to commit that genocide are going through our airspace, and a military machine is using our airports that is up to its neck in Israel's genocidal crimes. When are you going to do something about any of these things?
And when are you going to stop distorting the record of this government? And I know what you do. You'll put up the little clip and you'll cut it and you'll show how you shouted at the Taoiseach and said we're doing nothing for the people of Palestine.
You never put up clips, do you know?
What I say to the people watching those clips, is know this. This country is leading at a European level in terms of standing up for Palestine, standing up for international law, standing up for human rights. This is a country that is now going to take further action in relation to it. And you know what, I think there's a little bit of you that's nearly frustrated and upset that we've offered to constructively work with the opposition in relation to how we move this forward. Because it's not for you, you're not the international court. The international law-based system doesn't work with you standing up saying this is the way it is. What we do is we follow the advisory opinions of the ICJ. And when the ICJ gave an advisory opinion in July, the three leaders of this coalition said, well, what does that mean in relation to the context of what this Parliament, this law can do? We sought updated legal advice and now we're proceeding on that basis. This issue, you seek to divide on every single issue. We are as outraged.
We seek action.
We are as outraged in relation to human rights breaches and international law. But we also condemn all people who breach international law, and you still refuse to condemn Iran, and you don't believe that Israel has a right to live in peace and security.
Thank you.